again. Welcome to Crosstalk. My name's Redline. Up here, this is Ariel Wren. Say hello.
Hey, sorry. Good day.
Good day. Yeah, I titled the stream ESI Down Under specifically for the purpose of you saying good day. So I'm glad you're here to do it.
I'm
Um,
never one to let an audience down.
we appreciate that. We're also joined by Rain and a muted and deafened Jeremy and Derry. So hello, Rain. How are you?
Well, I'm good. Good as can be. How are you?
Oh, just fantastic. My wife just came in and waved at me for some reason. All right, cool. Love it. Anyways, so let's jump right into it. So, big topic right now. Actually, I'll be honest, it's not as big as I think it should be. Is ESI. So, if you're not familiar, ESI is essentially how the video game EVE Online transmits data to like third-party tools to tell them what's happening in the game. So like your Eve Mons, that gets stuff from ESI. Z Killboard gets stuff from ESI, Evu, all of that stuff. And one of the big ones is Alliance Auth, and that's where our friend Ariel comes in. Part of the team that works on that, head honcho. I confirmed it before. Head honcho. Head honcho. How's that going?
Uh, a combination of really well and really, really badly. We've got a fantastic team that works on Alliance Auth. I want to be clear, I'm one of about 12 developers that works on AA. It's super interesting, it's super fun, it's super challenging. CCP hate our guts. That's about as best as I can frame it.
Why would they hate your guts? It seems like you're doing something amazing.
If anyone watched the producer stream with Rattati and Berger the other day, I think CCP just have a fundamental misunderstanding of who we are and what we do, and even the history behind ESI. It's been around in the game either in its current implementation or in a previous implementation for a long time, and I think it predates a lot of the CCP devs that are currently around, and they're just not interested in engaging with us.
And so essentially what's happening right now is that I didn't really get like a timeline, but it seems like fairly often there are just these issues that pop up with ESI where there's parts of it that just go down temporarily and then never come back.
Yeah, I would certainly say there's been a pattern over the last 4 years of just what's what I'm looking for? Like abandonment from CCP. Um, and the longer something goes abandoned, the worse it gets, and the quicker it gets worse, and the more effort we have to put into keeping your tools running and the things that you use every day. So 3 years ago, bookmarks went down temporarily, and it didn't come back up.
Ever?
Uh, no, ever. So you cannot get bookmark data out of ESI anymore. And some people think that's a good thing. Some people think that's a bad thing. I think there's certainly a conversation to be had there. But CCP didn't tell us that. They just said it was down temporarily, and then that's the last we heard, and that was 3 years ago.
Well, I didn't even know about that one. The most recent one obviously was the corp data being put to 7 days instead of, like, a few hours, but, I know that's big for, like, Alliance Auth, obviously, 'cause I don't think we talked about what Alliance Auth actually is. We missed the history portion of this lesson, so tell me, what is Alliance Auth? What does it do? And who's it for?
Yeah, AA is Alliance Auth is a project of about 12 developers, maybe even more, across all of Eve to remove the IT advantage from your big alliances. Everyone needs an IT system to play Eve. You have to access Discord. You have to access Mumble, TeamSpeak, forums, wikis. If you don't have those things, you don't engage in Eve Online. CCP doesn't like that, but moving on. If you don't have Discord, you can't find out about fleets. That's just the reality of Eve in its current form. So AA is an open source tool to provide things like authenticated Discord and authenticated Mumble to people that aren't your goons, PLNC, Horde, Brave. I think they're the only closed source ecosystems I can think of. So anyone that isn't like the big three
Mhm.
run Alliance Auth or Seat, which is another extremely similar product to actually control all of their Alliance IT systems. And instead of us all doing it on our own, we banded together and we all do little bits and share it with everyone else so that 5 people in LowSec can have exactly the same level of IT, like super tools and even just authenticated Discord if you want. You can have as much or as little as you want, uh, and you can have the same as Goons. In fact, Goon
Better.
development will probably agree with me. I think AA is better than Goon Auth.
So I've used Seat before. I haven't used AA. I think that was the last one that I was going to use, and I've recently just created my own corporation, so I might actually use Alliance Auth. That sounds good. So what? It's got like timer boards, everything like that, sov maps,
Yeah,
what have you.
so we have I think it's like 50 community developed tools at the moment. Like moon board, even if it's just fleet timer boards, um, iHub timers, all that kind of stuff. And then we go deep into moon mining management and taxing your moons, taxing the ratting that happens in your space, um, adding people to Discord groups if they own a dread in a staging system, just to sort of name a few. Those are the things that I think people can instantly go, oh, okay, I see why that's useful.
That last one was a little bit scary. The being able to see the dread skills, because I saw in Discord earlier someone was talking about how goons now are using ESI to show like the super carrier, the super capital sale forums. So you have to have super skills to be able to see that. And I
Yes.
don't think I don't think a lot of people realize that all of that stuff is based on ESI, and all of that stuff can just be snapped away in an instant if CCP decides that there's going to be some sort of a change. Um,
Uh, I think one of the challenges here is that some of that data is a little scary. And I think there is a genuine conversation that we could have with CCP about how much data there actually is there, and how that's displayed and if we should have it. The problem is that it runs on exactly the same system as what corp you're in and what alliance you belong to, which is kind of if you boil everything down to its base roots, you can't just take one away, I guess, without the other, without actually putting a little bit of effort in and having some conversations with CCP. If we don't know what alliance you're in, like how do we give you access to Discord?
right. Like how do you give access to any how do you give anybody access to anything without knowing at least the basic information? And I think that was one thing that was like really scary for me, not as a developer. I don't develop third party tools, but I appreciate the hell out of what you guys do because you're doing things that I could never even think of doing. But one of the things that was scary for me is that on that producer stream, and I'm sure we'll touch on this later, Rattati was talking about, the kinds of data that players were given access to and like how they were given access to it and things like that. And I think you're absolutely right. That conversation does need to happen. But what scares me about it is that the conversation started with making a massive change to like the most fundamental core thing, like who are you, what group are you in, and they said no, we'll make that take a week instead of just a little bit of time. And that's so who's having that conversation right now? Anybody?
As of this morning, that change was actually reverted.
I saw
Um,
that.
so that information is back to being cached for a day. Um, Now, anyone that is actually developer savvy, and I don't want to get too technical on this detail, but the endpoint they actually changed in this very specific circumstance didn't actually have a massive flow on effect, because there are other endpoints that we can use that are only cached for an hour. So, a lot of the examples that people gave of people only being kicked from Discord after a week, which is what the CCP cache timer was, weren't entirely accurate, but there are certainly tools out there that were using this endpoint that are cached for a week. Tripwire was one, for example. Um, and it requires developer effort for us to go in and use a different endpoint, like access CCP's data a different way. And the other way that CCP want us to access that data really sucks.
Is it Microsoft
So,
Excel?
no, there is a bulk character endpoint that allows you to ask CCP who 500 characters belong to at once instead of one at a time. Makes logical sense that maybe we should be doing 500 characters at once instead of one at a time. Problem is, 2 years ago, CCP nerfed that endpoint, and any characters that are in Doomheim crashes it.
Oh no.
So I guess like the conversation that 4 year slow deterioration of ESI that's been occurring is the reason we're at today's problem is because of changes CCP made 2 years ago. This isn't just like a thing that happened overnight and it kind of sucked. It's been happening for 4 years, and it's been getting worse and worse and worse in different ways. And when those ways combine, we get to a scenario like what happened yesterday with 7-day cache timer with who you belong to that just sucks because the other way to do it is awful, and doesn't actually solve the problem.
Right. And so, I mean, honestly, and I've seen, so you've been engaging in dialogue with Ritati, at least on Twitter. His his replies have been interesting, to say the least. Seems very defensive about his data and what's going on with it.
Yeah, I think that flows back upon from that developer stream where I Rattati was talking about a lot of things. Now I want to be clear, I'm not saying it's Rattati's fault personally.
Same
CCP is an
here.
entity, and Rattati is just a representative of that entity in this circumstance. There are discussions being had about the way data was added to ESI, and that CCP has a commitment to ESI, and that it's stable and there's no problems. When that doesn't reflect reality, um, I don't know how to refute what is being said, both on that developer stream and in my engagement on Twitter right now, because I think we're coming from completely different platforms. Um, Rattati thinks that ESI was developed one way and is maintained one way, and I think that it was developed an entirely different way because I was there. And I think it's being maintained a completely different way because I can see it hurting me every single day. I come home from work and have to fix shit that CCP broke. Whereas I don't know if Rattati knows that that stuff is broken. And I'm really struggling to engage in an actual like serious discourse here because we're just coming from completely different like fact bases.
Yeah. So what's your fact basis? Where are you coming from on that? Like, what do you think ESI should bring to the table and compared to what it is now?
Sure. So there's a fantastic dev blog. Was it 2016 or 2018? My memory's failing me. Called Introducing ESI, and that actually laid out how ESI came about, and it was actually a community consultation between like CCP strategic leadership, game design, and third-party developers. Like we were involved in the conversation to solve a lot of the problems that existed with the previous API. Um, so a lot of this, like there was no dedicated team that worked on ESI. Isn't true because there was a dedicated team that worked on ESI, and unfortunately, most of those people don't work at CCP anymore. I don't know if they were let go or just moved on. That happens. Um, but there was once a dedicated team that worked on ESI, and there hasn't been in a long time, leading to today's issues. Um, there are a lot of discussions about the fact that data was added to ESI without approval, or like hodgepodge, like people just did whatever they wanted. That's not true either, because we sat down and actually had meetings with strategic leadership and game design, and everything was approved before it was added to ESI. Every single endpoint had a tick and flick from game design, and a lot of that is actually documented, um, in that dev blog and in the GitHub issues. Um, and I miss those conversations with game design. I miss them sitting down and saying, "Hey, we, not third-party developers, CCP, would like to release this information so that you can make a cool tool about it. If we put this effort in and release this endpoint, can you do something cool?" And we would say, "Absolutely." Can we swear on here?
Oh
Uh,
yeah, you can swear. Like, you say whatever the hell you
Absolutely.
want.
I wouldn't say that. I'm Australian. Um, so we would say absolutely. these are the tools that we will make with that data. And then we would go do it, and CCP would go, fuck yeah, that's awesome. And then rinse and repeat. We would come to CCP and say, hey, we want to make this tool. We would like this data. And CCP would say, game design doesn't like that. It's not visible in the client. So saying that things were not approved or a hodgepodge or were not maintained is just explicitly false, because there's plenty of things I would like in ESI that aren't there because game design said no.
Okay. So, and this is new information for me. I'm not privy to like the creation of all these things. I didn't start playing Eve until 2018, and I probably didn't know until what ESI was until like 2 years ago. Um, but the big thing, I think, I lost my train of thought. Hold on, I'll get it back in a second.
Redline.
No, I got it. So I guess the big thing for me is that so Ritati mentions that it was a hodgepodge of people like putting whatever they wanted into ESI. But correct me if I'm wrong, but based on what you just said, everything that is accessible through ESI right now was something that someone like you wanted to put in. Somebody approached CCP. Well, maybe not everything, but a lot of things were from like players and developers like you coming to them saying, "Hey, this is something that we want. Can we have it?" And then they would give you the go ahead or the no ahead.
Yes, and the other way around. It was data that CCP decided that they wanted to make available to us for us to make tools. Sometimes, you do them a favor. You make a kill board's a bad example because Zkill's been around forever. But you make a tool because CCP explores some data, and then you say, hey, we would like this data in return, and they put in some effort to make that happen.
Okay. And so
The
that's what Ritati calls a hodgepodge then. Good to know.
Yeah,
A two-way communication line where both parties benefit mutually and everyone's happy.
three-way
Hodgepodge.
communication, because strategic leadership is not game design. We're talking like Helmar was involved in some of these endpoints. And this was in the time of Eve when Hilmar wasn't super active. So I don't understand where this misinformation is coming from. Is there just no one around from CCP that remembers this happening? Uh, Am I crazy? That's actually entirely possible. Um, I don't think so, because the CCP dev blogs and all of the GitHub documentation back me up on this. Um, I just I don't I know ESI was being initially early accessed, and having those meetings with strategic leadership, game design, and the community dev. I know that was all happening around about the time that Dust 514 was winding up. So I don't remember Rattati being involved, and I don't think he would have been. So it's just kind of before his time, and I'm wondering if there's just no one around that remembers it.
It's kind of like postcode in the sense that no one really knows how it really worked, and everybody wants it to be something that they want it to be.
Yeah, exactly. And instead, I guess what Rattati has seen is something that's not well maintained, that has got security exploits that we've reported to CCP, and they've promptly done nothing about it. What Rattati has seen has been the last 4 years of ESI, that slow, gradual development, now that it doesn't have a team associated to it, which is bad. I think we can both agree on that.
Yeah,
So I'm
because
hoping,
if nothing's happening with it, then the only thing that you see are issues, and it looks like there's 395 open issues about ESI on this GitHub that was just linked. That's a lot of open
yeah,
issues.
it is. And a lot of them have, I guess, either propped up. They may have been while ESI was still being actively developed on. Issues happen. These things get fixed. And some of them are things like that ESI token, the way you access ESI, not being revoked when you sell a character. So you would sell a character to someone else, and the original person would still have access to all of your assets and wallets and bookmarks and emails. And if it was a director, all of a sudden they've got director access in the corp. for the person that purchased the character. Um,
And you would never know
you would
unless
never
you.
know.
Well, would
And
you
we've
still see
reported
that
those
though?
issues to CCP. No, you can't see that token. It's impossible. Luckily, it has been fixed.
How
We
long did it
reported that
take?
to CCP. 6 weeks.
6 weeks to fix something like that?
Yeah. So it turns out that security at CCP Games don't read their email.
Color me surprised.
Sorry, anyone that works at security at CCP Games, but maybe you did read it and didn't get allocated the time to fix the problem. That's quite possible because ESI is dead and abandoned, as far as I can tell.
So wait,
Um,
clarifying question, because you said we've had
mhm.
issues for 4 years and whatnot, but that was 2019. Some of these issues in this ESI list are from 2016. When did ESI come about? Because I know they
uh,
switched from API for a while.
November
yeah, so
2016.
November 2016, and it was actually in
Okay.
community consultation about a year before that. So some of the original people, like it was Fuzzy Steve, Lucia Dennard, who I don't know is active anymore.
Lucia, yeah.
Yeah, timeaboard.net person, right? Like been around for yonks, and Squiz from Zkill and Ifu. Um, CCP pulled those three people into a room and said, "We need to fix XML API. Those old, ID and hash keys that you used to just hand around.
Yeah.
They were bad because everyone used to trade them and sell them, and it was bad." Because people used to send Eve mails with their keys in them, which wasn't smart because you could read Eve mails with the keys. Um,
And that was like
so
the big push to ESI, right? Was players. So you have to remember players are dumb like me, or I don't know IT stuff. I should know IT stuff because I'm an auditor now, but like most people don't know that, right? So they don't understand like, hey, I'm sending my API somewhere and I'm just applying to generic big corp 234 or whatever. And so they don't understand like when they're giving some of these keys away, that gives away things like, hey, now we can use your ESI or your API key and send Eve mails on your behalf without you knowing, or we can
that
undock your ship or delete clones and stuff like that, right?
uh, not those things, but certainly read access. Back in the XML API, there was no write access with XML API.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, so those things were incredibly scary. You could read someone's exact XY coordinates in space and then land a hick on their super. All that kind of stuff that was really scary because those keys were easily shared around and they were sold and traded. Um, PL, I'm looking at you. You know what you did.
Uh-oh.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
PL was very notorious for that.
yeah. You would trade 100 like API keys for like ping access for a month and like shit like that, right? CCP wanted to solve that problem and they came to us. They came to third party developers and said, "How can we work with you? If we make this new thing, can we solve these problems?" And we did, essentially. You can't trade ESI keys around anymore. They were easily revocable. Um, we helped CCP solve a lot of those problems, and that was 2016. It was in development for about a year with Fuzzy, Squiz, and Lucia. The rest of us found out about it about the end of that year, and we put in a whole bunch of effort to swap to ESI, in like working with CCP in collaboration. So 2016 through to like 2018 was like fucking fantastic. That was glorious. Like CCP wanted things, we gave them to CCP. We wanted things, they gave it to us as long as game design approved. We worked together and it was extremely fruitful and extremely productive. And then it was, I don't know, that's why you see GitHub issues from 2016. We make feature requests, or they acknowledge issues and work on them. It's a collaborative space, right? Um, but the reason you see a lot of that stuff still from 2016 is because it hit 2018 and everyone just like no longer worked on ESI. Um, CCP bartender, I miss you.
Well, so basically, and this is what Ritati is refuting, and I've seen him say this on Twitter. But he's saying that ESI is not abandoned and that there's people that are still working on it. Do you know of any people that are working on it?
I do.
Okay.
I know of at least one developer possibly two. I don't think one of them works at CCP anymore. And I suspect that they're not given the time to actually, or resources to actually solve the problems. It's essentially on life support. As long as it stays alive, no one complains. And they can just slowly sit there and like turn things off as they cause problems. And I acknowledge that some of the reasons CCPs are shutting down these endpoints is because they're challenging. People are abusing them and attacking them. But instead of putting proper things in place to prevent that, they just turn things off. It's the quick fix, right?
Right. That's CCP's
The
MO, so makes sense.
so the one person I'm thinking of um, is a database guy, right? I don't want to say he sits in a dark room, but some of the language that has been used is normally nerd language. He's very abrupt. Some people would say he's rude. I just think he's a geek that works on databases all day and has to like occasionally deal with the shit that we throw at him. Um, and I don't think he's given the time or the resources to actually fix problems on ESI.
Gotcha.
I'm not going to call him out by name. He
No,
probably
that's
knows who
fine.
he is, but
That's
yeah.
fine. And I didn't want you to call him out by name. I was just curious if you knew, like, if you had any open conversation with anybody, because you are in the partner program as well, right?
Yes.
So you have
Um,
access to the devs in there. Um,
I
but
have
I've been
access
there,
to
so I
the
know.
community developers
Right.
in the partner program.
Well, there's other
We do not
developers in
have
there.
access. Yes. Um,
A bunch
there's
of them in
no
there.
ESI developers. I will say that much.
That was the question. So one thing that I'm gonna get a little bit tinfoil hattish about, because you mentioned earlier, and I wrote this down in all capital letters. You said that if you don't have the third party tools, you don't engage in EVE Online. So how likely is it that if something big, like really big, happened with the SA, like say making it go to through an entirely different service, like I don't know, Microsoft Excel, do you think that all of the third party developers that are currently developing these tools would put in all of the effort needed to convert their existing things over to a new system, or just abandon it all?
I think that would depend on the way the conversation occurs. Um, Developers are quitting, have quit, and will quit if the current trajectory continues. There has been a significant amount of third party developers quit. You probably don't see it because a lot of people have taken up the reins and are putting in triple time, quadruple time, tentuple time
I
to
think,
maintain these tools
yeah, I've seen
instead
Evo
of making
Preview is
them
a
better.
big one. That one's the one that's still being maintained. So I know that person quit, and then the Spectrum bot, that was Nexus Crawler, right?
Hmm.
He quit. Now that hmm. See, Nexus Crawler was one that I was very sad to see go, because he also did like the he had like a kill stream page that I could put on my stream, and we were working together to like make it really cool, and I streamed like the Keepstar fights, the big ones, like M2 and all that kind of stuff, with those third party tools. So not only did that impact, what I put on the stream, but that kind of stuff also impacted the, I don't know, 2,000 people that watched that stream over the course of a day, and seeing it all there. So I think people see it, they just don't even know that they're looking at it, is the thing. Because you would have never guessed that that was something that was developed by just third party developer. You'd think it was like a Z kill stream or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And to throw a little bit of self promotion out there, you probably use Alliance Auth and probably don't even know it. There is a significant chance that your Alliance's auth system is AA or SEAT. And if there's not, there's a significant chance that your Corp's auth system is AA or SEAT. And if it's not that, there's a good chance your coalition's auth system is AA or SEAT. And ideally, you don't know that you're using ESI. It just works. That's how. That's my goal. I would like you to just push button get cheese, but CCP is making that harder.
Right. And so what kind of, I guess, is there any data that you can get from ESI right now that you think that you shouldn't be able to get? I'm just picking your brain at this point. I ran out of questions and now I'm just kind of having fun.
I have one. I remember this was like a discussion point amongst my corp way back when, I think when we were doing something with ESI. Apparently you can allow writing of emails, so that's why I brought it up with API because I thought it was possible in API, but it must just be with ESI.
It might have been. Honestly, my memory's not that good.
Yeah, but like, so I argued with like my corp leadership back when this was a discussion. I was like, I don't want you writing emails because I've written literal emails in the past and have caused things to happen within the game. Like, so I was not comfortable letting anyone access to be able to write emails in my name. Like, I wouldn't even do it with like a tool of like, oh, I can write emails from my phone. Like, I just don't want people to have that ability because I've done it before. And so, like, I remember it was, like, this huge discussion point with my group, and they were like, "No, that's a good point." But, like, their argument was that if something changes with the ESI, then everybody has to reauthenticate. So when you're, someone with, like, 20 accounts, it fucking sucks reauthenticating. But
Yeah,
that's something that, like, for me, like, I would be nervous about, like, from my end. Like, I would like, people are just like, "Oh, it's your alliance. You trust them. They trust you. Like, just let them have access." But, like, that's something I'd be super sus.
I actually fully agree on that. It's an interesting conversation because AA works very differently to a lot of applications out there. Most applications request everything and then just use what they use, right? They might not even have ability to send emails, but they request it anyway because, like, who knows what's going to change in the future. AA is actually like the other way around. We only request public data. There is a scope called public data that does not give us access to anything. So we only request public data unless you use an app like FATS, right? Fleet activity tracking. It then will like request to read your fleet data, right? So it's all request on demand. You can explicitly allow or disallow each individual feature, and it wouldn't writing emails would not be something that we request by default unless someone specifically wrote an app for a specific reason to write emails, like recruiters, diplos, anything like that, and then only those people would grant permissions to write emails. I think that's a really important conversation to have in the third-party developer space around consent. Um, you can view explicitly what permissions you've allowed to specific apps. I think CCP need to do a better job of presenting that data to you. We try to do the best possible thing that we can do to show you what data we're using and why. But I think a lot of people don't. And because ESI has been so abandoned for 4 years, people doing the wrong thing on the API and people willy nilly requesting every scope probably aren't getting the attention that they deserve. And we should probably be, I don't know, self policing, or CCP should probably just be asking questions about why you're requesting so much data from people, if not taking that information and that access away. That's an important conversation we could actually have with CCP. So I would not request write emails from you. I think that's inappropriate unless I have a specific reason to do so.
I wouldn't give anyone access to that. That seems so silly. I didn't think that there was so much stuff that you could do with ESI. Like, I didn't think that ESI could actually control what your account does.
You can set a route with ESI. I remember that was a thing. I
Yes.
think you can. I don't want to say self-destruct clones, but you can see all the clones and implants, which is obviously is not public data; it's private data for your character. But like, so like, if you think from the perspective of like, a lot of people are asking CCP to do things with like Eve Mobile. Like writing Eve mails would be something you'd want on Eve Mobile. And I remember like when I was in Black Legion, Elo would always send Eve mails. And I was like, why do you send Eve mails? We have Discord. He's like, well, some people still check their Eve mails on their phone. So that's why he would send emails for Flea. And so that would have been an option where, hey, if you want this mobile app, you have to have an ESI token to send and read emails. Like, so that would make sense versus like alliance leadership or something like that. But that's like another thing too of like a lot of people don't understand what ESI can do. So they just assume if you give your ESI away, people can do whatever they want on your account. And like there's some truth to that, but there's also not a lot of truth to that. But it becomes very confusing for like end users.
It does, and ESI was developed to solve that problem. Back in XML API, it was kind of everything or nothing, and it wasn't clear what apps were accessing and what they were doing with that API. Um, so I think CCP needs to do a better job of showing people exactly what they're consenting to. But you can actually view that. If you go to community.eveonline/support/third-party applications, just Google Eve third-party applications. It will list specifically what scopes you have given to what apps. Um, and it's actually quite concise. Read mails is separate from write mails. You don't have to request both of them. ESI was developed specifically to solve the problem of just like global wide open access. It just hasn't. I don't want to say it hasn't been used in the way that it intends, but I think a lot of people are just like openly requesting stuff because they can. And I'm terrified of like, I'm sure you would get banned for this. But if you decided to set a route for everyone's supers in a super fleet 10 times a second and like crash everyone's client, I'm sure you'd get banned for that.
I would
But
hope
like,
so.
it's what's done is done, right? That's impact on the Eve client. And the only way we can have these conversations with CCP and fix these problems is by CCP working on ESI. It's not just a matter of like turning everything off. There's a way we can solve these problems by working together, and we used to do that.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I saw, and it might have been just like a comment on Reddit or something, is just that to make it so simple, if the problem is that there's attacks that are happening on these endpoints, to just put them behind like an Omega gate. Then at the very least, if you're gonna fuck with the system, at least you're paying $20 a month to do it, or someone's paying money to do it with Plex. I mean, that would be such a simple solution, and I feel like CCP doesn't look at they look at the wide solutions, the broad things, but not necessarily the simple ones. So like just changing the time frame of something from not 7 days to 7 days. That's kind of broad, right? They could be much more precise with it. Um
They could also actually implement some IT solutions, like caching the data so that it doesn't hit the server every time you request that data. Maybe that would make sense, but that's coming from a technical standpoint. There are things that CCP could do, but it would require effort. That's kind of what it comes down to. Is it would require someone to actually spend a little bit of time on it. Um, Winding something from 1 day to 7 days is literally changing a number in a system,
right.
and then more importantly, not telling anyone about it.
Yeah, that was the weirdest thing is that like I said before, this is a fundamental thing of a lot of services, and a lot of the game is about who you fly with, and it was just changed abruptly, and everyone threw a fit immediately, and then it was changed right back. But I want to know, I wish I could find out if CCP talked to anybody about it before they did it. Like, did they talk to the CSM? Is there anyone from the CSM that even cares about ESI stuff? I believe there is one person up there.
Kenneth, I would think.
I know Kenneth knows about ESI and cares about it. I haven't spoken to him personally. I reached out to Marky Mark. I know he did a lot of effort in like why the fuck is this happening? Because it affected his wormhole crew very specifically because Tripwire did use that API and was affected. I work with Brisk very regularly, but sorry CSM, but are you really relevant in 2023?
I don't I don't know if I can answer that question for them right now. Because it seems like they might not be.
CCP don't listen to us. They don't listen to the third-party developers, so I don't see why they would listen to the CSM about third-party developers. It's just the way it is.
They're doing the in-person summit soon, actually, so maybe we'll get some meeting minutes and we can see what they actually discussed.
We'll see. I know
I don't know if that'll
uh,
make it better.
there are some very good eggs at CCP that understand like the impact of these issues. And that was how I got the like if you sell a character, your token stays active kind of thing. Um, that's how I got that problem solved. Is I like literally had to pull a personal favor, and I was like, "Hey, can you go put this on someone's desk so that they actually find the fuck about it? Because it's important and it needs to be fixed." I had to pull a personal favor to get that fixed. It's kind of stupid, but there are at least some good eggs at CCP that are willing to champion our causes,
Mhm.
and we have been providing them data so that they can at least champion the cause. Um, like it's easy for me to say like AA is important and people can't play Eve without it. But it's much better for us to say 42,000 people rely on Alliance Auth and cannot play the game without it, or cannot engage socially without the game without it. 42,000 people would be affected. That's a better number to be able to, much better evidence to be able to take to CCP and actually have something occur out of it.
That is more than twice the amount of people currently playing the video game at the moment.
Yeah, it sounds like big words, but I genuinely believe that if ESI shut down, more people would be impacted than if the game client shut down. That is fascinating to think about. That if people were unable to log into Eve, there would be less people affected than if ESI went down.
Take me through that. Explain that because I feel like I know where you're going with it, but I want to hear you say it.
Well, I mean, what? There's 20,000 peak players in Eve right now. If we logically even extended that out to 4 time zones, and then added a little bit more in there, you reckon there's 100,000 people that play Eve a day? Um, well, AA have 42,000 users, and Seat has another 50 something thousand. Um, so and we're not the only applications out there. Goon Auth, Brave Auth, PL Auth, NC Auth, Horde Auth. Like,
Okay,
if
so
these things go down, all of these people don't get Discord pings and they don't engage socially in Eve anymore. And Eve is a social game.
like even people that don't even play the game anymore, or haven't played in years, they couldn't talk on Discord with their corp mates or anything like that.
Absolutely.
God, that would be inconvenient as hell. Are you,
I there are certainly people that believe that like Discord Auth and Mumble Auth should go away. Um,
why?
maybe CCP do. I don't know. Some people don't like it. But can you imagine trying to play Eve after having 20 years of just absolute troll spy attacks go on? Like your Mumble server would not be able to stay up. It would not be functional without Auth. You would have 1,000 people joining your fleet channels and R-chaining at the top of their lungs. You would just have 1,000 people joining your Discord server and sending dick pics. Like it would just be absolutely untenable to play Eve without Auth.
I like
Well,
how you say that expecting normal Discords to not send each other dick pics.
Look,
I've never seen a dick pic in Discord.
You're not in the dick pic channel,
That's
dude?
not a challenge.
Tactical Supremacy may have been formed out of Arsehole Squad and Gay Swarm. Is it Gay Swarm? What's the goon sig?
Queer swarm.
Queer
Queer
Swarm.
Swarm.
Sorry. I wasn't actually a goon. But like our server has dick pics. It's happened. Um,
I would never. All right, are you ready for the tinfoil stuff? I don't
fire
know.
away.
I don't know if you are. So the Microsoft Excel thing, I'm really harping on that because
Can I
I w-
stop you there?
sure.
I'm going to stop you at the start of tinfoil. Apparently that uses ESI,
What?
which I don't fucking understand.
Isn't Microsoft Excel like its own ESI?
Microsoft Excel is its own app, yes, but the plugin, from the people I have spoken to, the Microsoft Excel plugin that they want to develop uses ESI to access Eve data, which is the main reason it's not out yet, because ESI sucks too much.
I'm trying to wrap my head around that.
Me too.
So
Is that good news though? I mean,
no,
so no. So like if
no,
Microsoft
it's
Excel
not.
uses ESI data, then that means they have to fix ESI before they release it. So that means you are going to get attention versus like ESI just getting retired and replaced by Excel.
Well, I think this is where the primary like Rattati panic of like, oh god, ESI is shit is coming from. Like they've only just found out about all of these problems. They've only found out about some of the problems because they've got egg on their face because the XL extension isn't out yet.
Right, and so they've got a deal that they've been working on with a multi-billion-dollar company that is currently failing because their shitty system that they've abandoned and let degrade over the course of several years is
So
not
there's
coming
my
back to life.
tinfoil hat moment. That's why the XL extension isn't out yet. Shout out to the Google Sheets extension, which has been out for about 5 or 6 years. There is a ESI Google Sheets extension that you should be using instead of the Microsoft Excel extension that isn't out yet.
That I think that was a little bit below the belt, Ariel Wren. Just a
look, look, I'm Australian. It comes with the territory.
just a tiny little bit below where we wanted to be there. Oh, well, I'll tell you what. There's not a whole lot more that I had on my list. I wonder if chat has any questions. I've seen people talking in chat this whole time. Rain, do you have any other questions?
I have to look at Twitch chat.
You don't have to. I can look at it.
Love
I
you, Twitch chat.
I was gonna say I'm kind of privileged because I get to see a lot of Ariel's communication with CCP behind the scenes, and then likewise, the pub, at least on the partner Discord, CCP communicating back. But I mean, he's right. There's no like, from what I can tell, there are devs on there, but none that I would say yes, this is someone who I could go to for working on ESI. I know the community devs do their best to say, yes, we're relaying a message or hey, here's the response. But like at that point, it's just things getting passed through, but from a messenger. And I know how some of that stuff can get lost in translation and whatnot.
Yeah, I think it's really rough. I don't agree with how Rattati threw Swift under the bus. Like, I guess it's his job to be thrown under the bus, right? That's why you employ a community team. But saying Swift has been giving updates on recent operational issues that have nothing to do with our strategy nor commitments um, isn't exactly accurate because we're the ones that tell the community team about these problems. Like this stuff isn't communicated to us ahead of time. We find the problems and then report them to the community team, and then they go out and make a forum thread that like X thing is down or X thing doesn't work. Um, so saying that the community team is giving updates is really throwing them under the bus because they're not. We are.
Yeah, and then the best they can do, I know I saw, I think it was Zalus maybe. I think he was like passing back an update, but like some of that still is like the community team may be informed, but as far as I know, they're not just constantly sitting on Discord like, teehee, I'm gonna play Messenger all day. That's all I do as a community dev. They obviously have other obligations. So if something just doesn't either get passed to them or like they're still stuck in limbo, then that's all they can tell us as players.
So this chair has an interesting question in chat though. Thank you for the question. If Swift is doing the reporting of the problem to us, and that would be us like everybody else, right? Not you guys who reported the problem. And that's
Mhm.
a problem. Why aren't the appropriate people giving us updates?
I don't think there are any. So sorry, that's not fair. That the one person that keeps ESI on life support isn't given the time or the inclination to report issues to us. Uh,
And probably
Probably
not a
because
dev blog writer.
exactly. There are dedicated forums for communicating this information. The third-party developer forum. When was the last time that was updated? 28.
There's a third-party developer forum?
Third-party developer blog. Sorry.
A blog. Well, that's definitely not a 2020 plus word.
Yeah, it's just like a news feed. Same thing that like you have the Eve news feed. You have like a developer news feed.
Oh,
The last update from that was
October
CCP
2021.
Convict 2021. Yeah. Thanks, Bam. Love you.
And then
And
I'm
that
just
was because there is no like Team Tech Co anymore, right? As far as I can tell, or they're not given the time to communicate with developers. And those notifications are stuff is going offline.
yeah, so this last notification was saying that the authorized, token, and verified. I don't know what any of those things do. And I
That's
think
an
that's
IT dev blog, right?
yeah. And I think that's probably the worst part is that when people think about ESI, they maybe don't think about how much of it actually impacts us. Um, and that's, I mean, that's a huge thing. And I hope that people can, watch things like this and that you get the chance to talk in other places too. And that people actually listen and know that there are some big things happening behind the scenes that could go really poorly for all of us really soon. And that's my tinfoil. I'm predicting an ESI apocalypse when that Excel plugin comes out. Just absolute destruction.
Yeah, I mean, it's once is a mistake, like twice is an accident, like three times is a pattern, right? And when you look at the trajectory of Eve over the last 4 years, it began with like every 6 months something breaks. Like, no worries, like there's 12 of us. Um, there's a hell of a lot more developers than that around Eve. But for my team, there's 12 of us, right? We get in, we fix the problem, we push a change. People go update their applications, no stress. And then it's every 3 months something breaks. And that's like, okay, no worries. We get in, we put in the effort. Then every month something breaks. And it starts to get to a point where, like, guys, I have a job. Like, I can't be fixing your fuck ups every day.
Right.
We don't get notice for these changes. It'd be a Tuesday morning. I wake up. I'm Australian. I'm operating in a different time zone. So I wake up Tuesday morning and like no one can access Discord. 42,000 people can't access Discord. Like, do I go to work for 8 hours and like leave those people hanging? Like, what goes on here, right? Or ESI is just down for 2 weeks, like it was last year. Um, what do we do in that circumstance? And it's starting to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Now, in the last 3 months, we've had like I sent a kind of joking tweet back to Ratadia. I've probably been more under the belt than I should be. But when
A
Ratati said
little bit.
ESI isn't being dismantled, I said current status 2 breaking changes since this tweet because there had been in like 7 days. 2 things had gone offline that really sucked and actually impacted things and took tens or 20 hours to fix. And that sucks.
Right.
Like we're
Now
getting burnt out. We're not going to be around forever, and there's only so much we can do to fix things in a reasonable time frame.
now have you do any of the third party app developers for Eve charge anything for their development time, their apps?
I don't believe so, nor should you, based on the third-party developer agreement. We certainly don't, as AA, we don't do any fundraising whatsoever because AA doesn't cost us anything.
Hmm?
Uh, but we don't run an Alliance auth install. You can't visit our website and like log into Discord. That's not a thing that we do. We build these tools and then provide it to Alliance administrators. So we provide it to other alliances for them to use and for them to run their own servers. And most of those alliance administrators either run those servers out of their own pocket or fundraise for it, but we don't. And I don't know, like they're just covering their costs essentially, right? Like if a Mumble server costs $5 a month, people chip in to support that.
Sure, yeah.
But I don't believe anyone charges for their actual time.
Do you think that there's a conversation that could be had about, if it's something that does continue to degrade further and further, that there could be like a cost associated with it? A conversation with CCP about like, hey, because did you say that's against the rules? Is it to charge for
Uh,
those things?
you can't charge access for your applications. You can't use ESI is CCP's property. They're
Sure.
allowed to do with it whatever the fuck they want. They could turn it off tomorrow. They're allowed to. It's theirs. They provide it to us under a license, and we can't give anyone like additional stuff by charging money. Essentially, is the rules. Like we can't do init premium based on ESI by charging people money. As much as I'd love to see Darkshine's feet pics, you can't give people additional access or access they couldn't otherwise have in third-party tools with money.
And so I guess that would be my question is, do you think CCP would ever change that based on the amount of effort that goes into maintaining and updating these things?
Absolutely not. Um, I have been very, as much as it doesn't sound like it, I've been pretty careful with my words on stream today. I think a lot of these changes may be intentional. So I think allowing us to charge money to keep our things operating would definitely not be in line with that.
I'm gonna dig a little deeper there. You said this may be intentional, and you said that right after saying you were being careful with your words. So
Mhm.
you can turn off the careful if you want to. I'm
No,
curious.
no.
You think
Uh,
it's intentional?
I don't want to conflate the two because we've been talking about specific individuals in this circumstance. I just more meant probably as a strategic direction of Eve. There are people that do not like ESI and they do not like relying or needing third party developers. Um, and I think that explains a lot of the 4 year trajectory, not the specific people involved in the current changes, but in the 4 year trajectory and the fact that there have been no resources or developers assigned to it implies that CCP is choosing not to like support ESI. They don't like it. I think that's a fairly safe assumption to make. If they liked it, they would be spending money on it.
So do you think that this fun Excel integration is gonna be where they like, look, this is the data that's available in this Excel plugin, and it's only gonna be the data that they want. So they'll rip everything else out of it, and then eventually turn all that other stuff off.
I think that's probably the trajectory that things are going to go in. I'm not actually even opposed to that trajectory. I think if CCP were honest, I don't know that this is the trajectory, but if it is, I would prefer them to just be honest about it and saying like we're getting rid of ESI. We want to make it so that third-party developers aren't necessary, um, and we want things to be more easily accessible. I think that's fair. Like Eve tools should be more accessible to people. They shouldn't require IT knowledge. Um, and from watching what I watched of the developer stream, of the producer stream, that's a fair like thing to want. They should want these things to be more accessible to people, I guess. And they've been very clear about that. And that's
Yeah.
what the XL plugin is trying to solve. I think they're going the wrong way about it. I think they could have a much better result by including community developers, because that's my goal. I don't want just goons and PL to exist because no one else can make IT tools. And I'm hoping maybe we can find an equal platform there. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I think the kind of one of the things that I hope doesn't end up happening is that there's like some part of me that thinks that CCP really is just trying to kill the game in some ways. And then there's a bigger part of me that's like, dude, there's no way that these guys would purposely try to tank their video game. But then stuff like this happens. The craziest thing is though that the stuff that the third party developers make, this stuff isn't available in the video game. If it was available in the video game, that'd be totally different. Like if I could pull up a kill board in the video game, that'd be sick. If I could look at a timer board in the video game, that'd be sick. There's a calendar in the video game. Why not a timer board? There's no real reason that everything that the third party developer makes couldn't actually be in the video game Eve Online right now.
I don't know if anyone remembers this, but Eve used to have voice comms.
And a
I remember that.
jukebox.
It was garbage, but it was kind of hilarious.
They sucked.
It was so much fun. I've only used them once, and that was when they were going away, so I did a stream about it.
And I think even like the fittings tool is probably a really good representation of that. Not everyone should have to use Python to make an Eve fit. That's unfair. But if you want a better tool with more functionality, Python exists. But you can also do all of this cool stuff in game that lowers the barrier to entry. You could do both.
Yeah. And I hope that, as we cross whatever threshold we're about to cross into the wasteland of Eve Online ZSI as it tries to integrate with Excel, I hope that it brings a lot of cool stuff with it and a lot of actual integrations. Herku says, wasn't there even a Twitch integration? That would be amazing. There is a Twitch
Oh,
integration right now, but it's a third party developed bot for Twitch that connects your Eve name or your Eve character to your Twitch name, and CCP uses that on their streams to give out like skins and stuff. So it's really not in their best interest to hurt third party developers, especially since they do still use some of the stuff that you guys do.
Well,
Is
Ariel's
that
been talking
thing
about
public, Rain?
um yes, you're talking about the bot that Lumiko uses?
No, no, no. The other thing.
The thing I
The-
asked you about?
Uh, no, not that. The other thing.
I don't
I,
know which other thing.
Oh
so I
no.
I wanted to make Twitch drops.
Yeah, I was
Because
gonna say like, okay, yeah, go on.
because
Oh
CCP was
yeah,
like
yeah,
taking
that's
too
probably
long.
public.
The other thing.
So I'll say it because I can take the hit. CCP has said that it is on their plan in the quote unquote shorter rather than longer term. Thank God. I think that's probably as like vague as I can make it. They haven't told us really anything except that they want to do Twitch drops. And this is for context, this is after probably like years, if not a decade, of people saying, "Hey CCP, you should have Twitch drops for Eve." So they are saying it's on their radar. So like really, really good news. But yeah, like Ariel has been trying to convince CCP to let him do Twitch drops because he said he could build a tool much easier and faster than like it is working with Twitch.
I built the difficulty is you have to stream Alliance Auth. You can't stream EVE Online because I don't own the EVE Online brand on Twitch. And nor should I. But I have a extremely rough, barely functional Twitch drops tool. As long as you stream Alliance Auth, not EVE Online, which isn't really going to work in the grand scheme of things.
It
Because
could.
we in Australia have 6-week holidays in December. So I had 6 weeks off. I was totally going to work on Twitch drops and like make a tool. Unfortunately, CCP changed like 4 things over the holidays, resulting on me having to fix Alliance Auth like every week. So I didn't get any time to work on Twitch drops, but it's something I wanted to work on. I just haven't been allowed to by CCP because they keep breaking shit.
Well, I hope they stop breaking shit soon. And I think I've taken up all your time. Are you are you good?
Look, I'm good. I am on my lunch break and like I should go to work soon, but I'll just work late. Like it's no stress. This is
It's work,
important
right?
to me.
Yeah, I'm bad at knowing ESI stuff, but like I feel like everybody uses it and whether they know it or not. And like CCP either their solution is either help support ESI or make the tools in game better so that you don't need ESI. Like why do I need to use PIFA or EFT or any of these other fitting tools when I should be able to like do ghost fitting and do better ghost fitting, like to include implants or what if I'm receiving logi reps or something like that or using drugs. Like the fact that they don't include any of that in game, and they just now we recently got ghost fitting. I think that was what 2018 or whatever. Is
What is
like a
ghost
huge
fitting?
step. That's the ship simulation, so you can use a like simulate a ship in game and then attach modules to it to see what fits and what doesn't.
Hold up. That wasn't available
It
always?
No.
no. When I started this game, people told me I had to learn EFT and PIFA, and I opened it up and I was like, this doesn't make sense to me, and I never used it. So I never knew how to fit a ship. I literally would just copy other people's fits.
All right. I'm going to need to go
That's like
back to the tape.
that's that great collaboration I was talking about. Like you can have these features available in game, and then you can have people make better, more complicated tools out of game. You can have both.
I'm just
Do I blow your
I
mind?
I'm wrapping my head around all the stuff that I wish could be in Eve Online. Like, so I'm thinking about the browser, right? Fundamentally, a browser is all you really need. But I realize that there's a lot of like places that could have bad stuff injected into a browser in a video game, so it's not a good idea. But having the things like having a killboard, like being able to watch a battle report unfold while you're in the battle in the video game watching it, like you're seeing it on your screen, just like the ISK adding up, it'd be very cool. It would be very, very cool. And
how cool would Logi on kill mails be?
Shut up, dude. The
you just
tools
said
are
that
there.
for rain.
CCP could add it. I've been trying.
CCP made them.
Oh my god, it makes me so
Game
mad.
design. They got added to ESI.
I know.
See,
I've been trying to pay you to make that tool, but you are so busy with other things. I literally cannot find a dev to pay to make the tool. Been trying for like 5 years. If anyone wants to make me a Logion Killmail tool, I will literally pay you. I'll
They
send
got
you feet
removed.
pics or ISK. What it did? Fuck my life.
Yeah, they weren't approved by game design.
But they
I hate
exist, is what
this.
he's saying. That they
Yeah.
exist.
I mean, they would probably have to remade in 2023, right? Like it was a couple of years ago that these got made. But that was a collaboration between ESI and third-party developers to make Logi on Killmail, and then game design killed it, not third-party developers.
Well, yeah, because Logi doesn't belong on Kill Mail. Sorry, Rain. You belong on
Up Redline?
heal. You belong on heal mails. Like you guys should get reverse kill mails, where if someone dies and you've repped them, then they're on your kill board as your loss. You lost that ship
Ooh.
because you didn't rep it hard enough.
I swear to God, Redline, I'm
You
gonna
can't
fight you.
even argue the point.
This is why I don't fly in your fleet. So I was messaging someone. I just feel like CCP has tools in game where like you could probably like have like a screen reader or some shit like that and make a tool, but I hate it.
Well, that's one of the issues that I guess fundamentally ESI was intended to solve. Remember how people used to scrape the market data out of the client? Because there never used to be a way to get like item prices. I don't know if you do, but way back in the day, before ESI, the only way to get the price of an item was to visit that item in game and then literally scrape the data out of the memory of the client. CCP really didn't like that. They don't like us doing that kind of stuff, so they made it accessible in ESI. And if ESI went away, we would go back to scraping that data out of the client or screen reading, or all of those things that are like explicitly not allowed in the EULA. Um, it's a way to encourage people to do things that aren't bad. I don't know, it's just a side thing I've been like racking through in my head, is that people want to get this data, and if you don't provide it to them in a good way, they'll do it in a bad way.
Yeah, like if people want something, they'll get it. These are Eve players we're talking about here. If they want it, they'll have it.
All I'm hearing is I should bot to make a Logi on kill mails.
You would have to, because it's not in ESI.
Time to bot, dude. Let's go.
What are you gonna bot to put Logi on kill mails?
I don't know, but I'll just have like a file reader that reads the logs of like because when you rep somebody, it shows up in a log. So I'd have that, and I have another file reader to read the like broadcast list. And I could say, hey, this person broadcasted way too late. We couldn't even apply a cycle of reps.
I mean,
And then,
technically, reading the logs is not against the EULA. Reading
oh
the
my
logs
god,
is
let's
fine,
go.
but
Okay,
still,
Yeah,
you
that's
would.
what like the Intel tools do is read logs.
why isn't it just in the game? We could have Eve could be so good. I can't I can't even play Eve from Australia without a VPN at the moment. Like, why is Eve so bad?
Because we love it so much. If it wasn't so bad, we wouldn't love it as much as we do. We just want to make
That
it better.
If we
is a
didn't have
real
its faults,
tangent,
it
and it's
wouldn't be
just
worth it.
frustration. Sorry.
No problem. I say
Well,
if it didn't have its faults, then it wouldn't be worth playing.
That's
that is
true.
very true.
But it's frustration out of love, right? Like we see what it could be and we see what it's been. And
True.
And I really hope it does get there some point. I hope the Excel thing is cool. I'll be honest, I was a little bit doom and gloom at the beginning of the stream, but then thinking about the cool stuff they could do with it has me hopeful. I think Rain calls that naivete. She thinks I'm naive, but I tell her I'm still a newer Eve player. I haven't been playing for 20 years. I didn't even know that. I thought the fitting tool was always a thing.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I realize that in hindsight.
I've never used the old map
Oh, what? Okay, that's outrageous.
ever.
The old map is way better than
Go
the new
ahead.
map.
Go ahead. Give me some other changes that have happened that I wouldn't know
Um,
about.
the new one of my favorite is like watch list changes. You can add more people to watch list. You can change the color
Oh,
of
I
watch
know
list.
about that one. I know
You can
about
share your
those.
watch list.
Those are all pretty share your watch list.
Yeah, so like if you have watch list settings, you can share it with people. So
oh,
like
share the settings. I follow.
not watch list settings, broadcast settings. Oh, watch list
Mhm.
colors that changed since I joined the game. Like it used to just be like have to remember who was links, who was logi, etc. Sharing overviews was big. That was a good
FC
one.
at the top, links, then Logi, then your corp mates.
Yes. Well, dictors and then your corp mates.
Fuck dictators.
But like, yeah, stuff like that. The one thing, so Redline for the longest time, this was terrible as a new player. For the longest time, all the ships were just a box on the screen. So you were like, "Oh my god, it's this ship," and you're like, "I have no idea what that is." And you'd like look at the icon, you had to open up the info, read what it said. Like you had no fucking idea what a ship
Oh,
was.
that's a dreadnought. Oh, it explains because that box is the same box as a frigate. That makes sense,
Yeah.
right?
And like so when you saw like new or rare ships, like nobody had no idea what they were. There was no way to instantly know.
And see, I've only always ever seen those icons, the ones that exist now. I've never seen a colored neocom menu. Um,
Did you have active damage control? Damage control used to be an active module.
no.
Oh, the suitcase.
Yeah, you had to click it every time. You couldn't overheat it either.
Suitcase. I've seen it before, and I know I've seen. I remember Sinos on every ship.
Yes,
Sino
that was a
interceptor.
fun one.
Yeah.
God, I wish they would go back to that change. Interceptors actually could go through bubbles without having to click a button. I miss that.
The good old days.
Or
And
before that, they couldn't.
They couldn't, then they could, then they couldn't.
And see, now that's the one I wouldn't remember them not being able to go through bubbles, because when I joined, they could definitely go through bubbles. Very fun time. Well,
I
go ahead. What?
No, I was just gonna go on more nostalgia.
Oh, yeah. I don't think we need to go down the nostalgia route, because I'm gonna start looking at ways to get a private server for 2018 EVE Online, and then I'll try to
Look,
sell it, and I'll get banned.
we're only here because of the people that play Eve. That's the reality. Eve hasn't ever been good. That's probably a interesting statement. But I don't play
I
Eve
don't know
because of
about
Eve. I
that,
play Eve
but
because of the people.
Yeah. I don't know. I think EVE is a fun game. I think it can be a lot of fun. And I think that we definitely need to make sure that anybody who's messing with the data that is received and transmitted to and from us to the game, we definitely need to keep a close eye on that, especially with the
Absolutely.
Excel stuff.
I wanted to ask anyone who is like remotely unclear, being like, well, who can access my data? Go to the third-party applications page on CCP and scroll through all of your tokens. You've probably got an alliance from 4 years ago that you haven't been in that you're still giving all of your access to. You should go through and view exactly what you're even giving to your current alliance and make sure that you're okay with that. And if not, you can delete those applications and revoke the access. I think CCP did a really good job a long time ago of making it really clear what you're consenting to. But there is a way to see that, and you should, even if you're just interested.
I'll throw it out to Redline since you recently left your alliance. You should definitely go double check that.
It's good. I'm good. I did it before I left.
Very smart.
I'm a smart cookie. Well, anyways.
I was gonna link that on Twitch if I can find the right link.
Please do. I don't want to look at Twitch chat.
Yeah, I'll do
Twitch
it. Don't
chat's
worry.
fine. Twitch chat's been super calm. It's okay. We're gonna say goodbye here shortly though, because I allotted about an hour. We got about an hour and 15 minutes out of it. I'll take it. And I'm
we'll
gonna
see.
keep an eye on your Twitter, Ariel Wren. And if you get into more fights with CCP Ritati, just know I'll be there rooting for you. I'm in
Gonna
your
like all
corner.
of his tweets and not Ritati's tweets.
I won't like a single one of Ritati's tweets.
Honestly, I'm kind of just having fun with it now. Like, I was at mildly frustrated 2 years ago. I was at explicitly angry a year ago. And now I'm just like, well, there's no hope, so meh. I'm just having fun with it.
Yeah. Well, I think there's hope. I hope there's hope. I hope it's not just naive. Say the word, Rain.
Naivety? Being
Yeah.
naive? I don't know. I can't speak
Nativity.
English.
Nativity. There we go.
No,
No,
naivety.
Christmas was just last month.
Naivete.
Naivety. Naivety. Or naivety. Jesus Christ.